look, LeBron has built his legacy. It's a great legacy, up among the greats, even if you don't have him as the GOAT. I just wonder how Luka is looking at, LeBron, like laughing at with Anthony Edwards when Luka was getting to his first conference finals and then NBA finals. I'm sorry, he was in the conference finals before, getting to his first NBA finals last season, and going through Anthony Edwards to do that. I don't know, you guys. I said last season that I don't think you can have LeBron James as a max contract and be a title contender. I still feel that way. I don't feel like it has gotten relieved. So we've got a lot to discuss. Before we get into our main topics today, just want to give a shout out to new listeners and followers and viewers. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, and sharing our content. Please continue to do so, supporting the Hoopsology podcast. We really appreciate it. Trying to bring you guys some of the best discussions going on in the basketball and sports media landscape. And we will continue to try to do that today on In the Lab. So just again, shout out and thank you to all the listeners and supporters of our show. Let's go ahead and get into it, you guys. So on our most recent In the Lab, we talked about our first round predictions. Many of those have come to fruition exactly how we expected. And then there have been some interesting differences as well. So I kind of want to just kind of casually, round ball style, just kind of go through this and get your guys' thoughts on all these series. Much like we started in our predictions, we'll go ahead and start in the East. And I want to start with what I feel like is maybe the most consequential series thus far, although I guess you could argue the Pacers and the Bucks. I think we all were pretty high on the Pacers going into this series. I don't remember any of us picking them in 5 games, though. It was pretty quick work. Unfortunately, there's the injury narrative and all those things. We didn't get to see Doc Rivers do the classic up 3-1 and then drop it. In some ways, maybe it was worse for him in that it was over in 5 games. Regardless. Justin, I'll throw to you first, just kind of your thoughts on this series, and then there was a bit of controversy to end the series overall, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, on the court first, I mean, Damian Lillard, like a non-contact injury, brutal. I'm always
Yeah.
in denial with those injuries. I always hope, well, he just pulled a muscle and he just got to sit on the bench for a couple of minutes. He'll come back out. But in reality, it's just like he's gone for a long time. That was just brutal to watch him just go out like that. The Bucks have a lot of soul searching to do, and it starts with Giannis. I remember, well, when was Damian Lillard? When did he go to Milwaukee? Was that 2 years ago?
That's correct.
Okay. So I remember just Bill Simmons talking about how, this trade could like change the league and it could have a huge impact or it could be a disaster. And I just don't think they gel, unfortunately. And I think there's been evidence to prove that. And I think it's been weird because I've heard other people saying like Giannis should stay in Milwaukee and I don't know, he's betraying the city if he leaves. He won him a championship. I mean, he's been extremely loyal. I don't know, understand this hatred for him leaving. But anyways, I just think this series is indicative of the roster as it's currently constructed for Milwaukee. And I think we're going to be discussing this for some other teams. It's not meeting the expectations for a Giannis, for a superstar MVP type player in the league. I'll touch on the whole incident after we get Allan's thoughts because I just want to hear him just in terms of what happened on the court. But one more thing I'll add before I pass it to Allan is Haliburton in terms of his maturation process. And really, the media and fans calling him overrated, and him responding to that on the court, scoring the game-winning basket on Giannis. That's what superstars do. They don't whine, they don't complain. They put their talking on the court, and that was pretty impressive to me. And also what he handled, what we'll talk about in a little couple of minutes. But overall with Tyrese Haliburton, I think he has the ability to be a superstar in this league. That impressed me in terms of a lot of pressure, a lot of BS heading into the season, into the playoffs, and to respond in that fashion. That was an aspect that stood out to me. We'll see what happens, in the later rounds. I'm not saying the Pacers will win the title or anything, but with Haliburton, he took a huge step forward in his career.
Yeah, you got to have those highlight moments on your sort of like hero's journey or your superstardom journey, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. I mean, only way it could be bigger really is if it were happening in later rounds of the postseason.
Yeah.
But a great stepping stone. Totally agree. Great thoughts there, Alan. We'll throw to you for your thoughts overall on the series.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think Justin, I agree with you about Tyrese. I think he's going to be the most beloved, best pacer since Reggie Miller, um, and I think he's well on his way to doing that. He's got the big time game highlights. He's got some kind of mind blowing stats when you kind of look at what he did near the end of the year, with his assist to turnover ratio, which was just insane. He started off the year in a slump, but he certainly is not slumping now. Watching the end of that game, the end of that game was kind of said it all about the series. It was a comedy of errors for the Bucks, and it was great play, solid play by the role players for the Pacers. Nimhard hitting the three, and then their superstars, you know, uh, making the big plays. I really couldn't believe that Tyrese turned the corner so quickly on Giannis for that last play. I was like, what just happened? How does that even happen at this point in a series, in a game, in a closeout moment? Um, I think, and I'll save my comments for the after game stuff after Justin and Matt talk, but um, I I think for the Bucks, I just don't know where you go from here. You've got a poorly constructed roster. You've got aging players. I mean, if they trade Giannis, then my God, they're going to end up with the Kevin Porter Jr. experience. And I can tell you from experience, that stinks. And I feel so bad for them. So I don't know. It is going to be an interesting offseason for the Bucks to see what they do. And quite frankly, if they're going to rebuild and they trade Giannis, I don't think Doc sticks around because he considers himself to be a championship caliber coach, not a rebuilding coach.
Yeah. Well put. And since we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the Bucks' future a little bit. You put it well there, Alan. I mean, the future is looking grim at the moment. I did hear, I think, Bill Simmons say that it looks like a more grim situation than the Phoenix Suns at this point as it stands because, insult to injury, not only is Damian Lillard injured, but he's out for presumably the rest of next season. And then when he comes back, presuming this is an Achilles injury, we saw if it affects Kobe the way that it did at a similar age, and Kobe is one of the all-time greats, and Damian Lillard is not as big of a guard, obviously, as Kobe was. He's going to rely on that speed and quickness, I think, a little bit more with what he does, even though he does have a very good shot. I don't know. You hate to say it and you hate to see it, but I don't see this playing out very well for Damian Lillard, and it's crippling for the Bucks too in terms of a cap space situation and what you do to rebuild all this. You mentioned it, Alan. One of your potential lifelines, I guess, like your reset button, is the asset that is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you could get a lot for him, but you're kind of locked into, you said it well. I mean, the Kevin Porter Jr. experience that we got to experience in Houston. Now that did lead to a 2 seed this year, even though we'll talk about the Rockets in a minute. But I don't know, Justin, from your perspective, looking at where the Bucks are right now. I mean, I always have a tough time saying that you should trade a generational multiple time MVP, but I I don't know. Where do you go from here, Justin, if you are putting on your GM cap for the Bucks?
Yeah, let's put it this way: the Q rating for trading away your best player is not great right now in sports, based on what happened with Luca. So if you're going to trade Giannis, you better be sure you get great or better value for him, at
Well,
least,
you
or
don't get
something,
better, I don't think.
or
Or it's
at
hard
least
to say
at
you'll
least
get better.
well, I just think in terms of laying out your future for draft picks, I think that could be at least a possibility of like rebuilding your franchise that way. Probably better is a little bit overreaction, but at least somewhat in terms of building out your future. So to me, would I trade Giannis? No. I just rebuild around him. I mean, the question is what do you do with, like Allan was saying, with those other pieces? I mean, how attractive are they if they're aging? I mean, they're really in a tough spot, other than to really try to tank and just get some draft picks in the future. And I don't know if Giannis wants to be a part of that. I mean, it's very clear he wants to compete for the championship and be in the playoffs every single year. I don't think he has any interest in trying to rebuild, wait a couple of years, and then come back and retool. I don't think he has any interest in that. So yeah, it's in a really tough position. I'm not sure what the correct answer is.
Well, and you can't unless you get your picks back. I think they're in a spot where it doesn't even help them to tank.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but
they owe
that
their picks to somebody
that won't
else.
play out
Yeah,
until a little while from now. And
makes
Alan,
sense.
I'd ask you any reaction to that, and then also like if you're wearing your GM cap, what kind of lane do you pick here?
I mean, one thing I think they did that was a huge mistake, but I mean, in hindsight, obviously, but I mean, I think their best young prospect, even though he was raw, was AJ Johnson. They threw him in with the Chris Middleton trade.
Hmm.
And the return on that was Kyle Kuzma, who absolutely nobody wants. If they're going to get off of Kyle Kuzma, they're going to have to attach picks to Kyle Kuzma. So they've kind of put themselves in a weird spot. I mean, and we saw AJ Johnson get playing time in Washington, and while inefficient and inconsistent, he did put up numbers in games and showed some of that, flashed some of the potential that obviously the front office saw in him. Um, I they don't have young talent. They don't they don't have picks. They I mean it is a very similar situation to the Suns. Um, I, I mean if you rebuild with Giannis, you got to make sure Giannis understands that's what you're doing, and he's got to be willing to punt on a season at the age of 30. Um, which who knows? Who knows? Um, I mean, Giannis on the team in the East is good enough for them to continue to make the playoffs. So they're not gonna. It's not gonna be like a big tank job where they're gonna get high draft picks. They're going to have to figure out if they keep him. They're going to have to figure out how to build around the fringes. They're going to have to see if is anybody interested in Brook Lopez. What can the Lakers give you for that? Because they're desperate for bigs. Um, what uh, does Kyle Kuzma, is there anybody crazy enough to take him on? Um, you kind of you're just at a spot where um, all things considered, it might be better to blow up the whole thing, get as many draft picks as you can. The other part of that though is it feels like since the original Harden trade, and the Westbrook trades and the Chris Paul trades, that superstars are not going for as much as we would expect them to go for lately. I mean, you look at the Luca trade. I mean, we all, that was not what we thought Luca should have garnered on the market. Um, so in a competitive where you're putting teams up against each other, for Giannis, are you really going to get Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, and all of those draft picks for Giannis? As I think the Ringer had in one of their Giannis trades that they wanted to see. I just don't see the get being that. I think it's either picks or minor stars who or older stars.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and just to add to your point, Matt, so 2025, the first round, the Bucks have no picks. That's owed to New Orleans. The second round, they have some picks, but look, 2026, New Orleans has a right to swap the first round pick for a favorable position. The second round, they have a top 55 protected from Utah. 2027, they have none. 2028, Portland has the right to swap the first round pick as part of the Damian Lillard trade. 2029 is none. The second round in 2028, they have none. 2030, Portland has the right to swap the first round pick. I mean, it's not even until until 2031 that they have their picks back. I mean, and this is from Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. That's putting this out there. So to your point, Matt, you're completely right. I have no idea. God, they're in a horrible spot.
It's even worse than I remembered.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing
You're
the list up, and our condolences to Bucks fans.
Yeah.
Just to kind of put a lid on this before we talk about some shenanigans during this series, and then we got to move on to other series. But I think with Giannis being a franchise great and having that speck of hope that he even someday maybe retires a Buck, I think that's a rare thing, and that would be a good thing for the Bucks franchise. So I still do think, to answer the GM question, I try to hold on to Giannis. Allan, you're right on the money that the East is weaker, so you can still be in the playoffs, even if you're not as much of a factor as you've been in the past, 3 to 5 years. But maybe something can turn around quickly, despite the lack of draft assets, if you just hang on to Giannis, if you're able to do that and keep him happy enough to stay. I think that's where I'd go with it. But there's a great case to be made that you should blow it up and get assets while you can as well. I just don't think I'd go that way with a multiple-time MVP and a guy who's only been with the Bucks. But hey, let us know in the comments if you totally disagree with that assessment. Allan, I want to throw to you, since you brought this up in our text thread. What happened at the end of the series?
Justin, you're gonna love this because I'm gonna go way back to one of Giannis's first years in the league. Um, Giannis has always been a hothead and has had a temper when losing games. His first playoff appearance, he famously, in the closeout game that they were getting blown out by the Bulls, he famously just pushed Mike Dunleavy Jr. into the stands. Um, it was nuts. It was like a nut play, right? And this is before Giannis was anybody, right? He was just a skinny kid with some potential. Um, I- Tyrese Haliburton's dad. I mean, look, in that situation, they were both wrong. And Halliburton's dad has said as much. He has said he made a mistake and he's apologized. Um, I I think as Giannis, you don't engage with a fan or a father of somebody like that. You move on. They're not worth your time. It's not. You don't need to tell them anything. You need to just move on with your life. And then the whole Benedict Mathurin thing was just weird. It was like it looked like he was just having that kind of end of the game conversation, but the way he was grabbing him by the back of the head, I wouldn't like that either. And I don't know what was said. I don't know if there's been reports about was said, but obviously both guys did not like what the other was saying. And then crazy Kevin Porter Jr. comes in there like he's like Ron Artest at the Malice at the Palace, and he's trying to shove and punch anybody he can. It was weird. That's on Giannis. He's a great player, generational, but he has got to control himself. He's got to not engage with that kind of nonsense.
Justin, any thoughts on
Yeah.
those shenanigans?
Lots of thoughts. First, I'm going to read you a tweet from Sham Sharania. He said Tyrese Haliburton's father will not attend the Pacers' home or road games for the foreseeable future after the altercation with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I agree. Personally, let's start with Tyrese Haliburton's father. From what I heard from Brian Windhorst, he is what the streets call a habitual line stepper. It seems like he talks a bunch of trash to opposing players. And to me, stepping on the court and antagonizing the NBA player when you are a fan, I don't care who he is. I don't care how great of a father he is. I mean, to me, that's it. When you're antagonizing the NBA player, That's an automatic. You're banned from the arena for life. You should never attend an NBA game again. I don't want to hear he made a mistake. He'll never do it again. That's zero tolerance. I mean, your ticket has no right to antagonize people on the court. I mean, if that was, I think it was either Kendrick Perkins or Windhorse or somebody. If that was like, you imagine Stephen A. Smith, what would we say to Stephen A. Smith if he actually goes onto the court and antagonize, he has a towel and he's antagonizing LeBron? I mean, would we want Stephen A. Smith to ever be in an NBA arena again? No. So for this guy, I mean, who's a fan or any fan at all, he should be banned for life. You lose that privilege. He shouldn't be in a skybox. He shouldn't be in some room. He should never attend an NBA game again. Go watch it on your 100-foot flat screen at home. You lose that privilege, in my mind.
But he
now,
is a star player's dad.
So what? So you're the NBA. You're the NBA. Look, you're the NBA as the league. And I actually give the Pacers props on this because I actually thought they would let the NBA just handle it. But I give the Pacers credit in dropping the hammer. Because the Pacers are the bad guy, not the league. So I think that's a fascinating move there. And it ruined your son's moment. That was, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the crowning achievement of Tyrese Haliburton's career? He scored a game-winning basket and eliminated the Bucks. This could be the end of Milwaukee. And instead, we're talking about this. I mean, you ruined your son's moment because of your shenanigans.
Yep.
I mean, shame on his father. That's a disgrace. It is. I mean, for all the crap that Tyrese Haliburton has taken from the Olympic team to this year to the other players calling him overrated, I mean, this is his crowning moment. You're just going to ruin it because of your own selfishness? Like, shame on you. So let's get to Giannis. I think Allan has a really good point. I think, honestly, Giannis should probably be suspended for a game. Like, to me, like, if you take a look at that confrontation, as much as I am very angry about Tyrese Haliburton's father, it's Giannis who goes to him. Giannis gets in his face and pretty much borderline headbutts him. Like, and not to mention what he did, what you mentioned, Allan, with the other Pacers players. I think that warrants a suspension. I just think with the Mouse and the Pals, there should be a zero tolerance policy all the way around. Like, the hammer needs to be dropped. I don't like, people made mistakes or second chances. Not in this situation where you're endangering, it could be a confrontation with your MVP. And then on Giannis's, you're borderline going to attack a fan. I mean, that cannot happen again. So I'm in favor of a harsh punishment for both. And I think a game is, especially Giannis is, they're eliminated. So you're not affecting a playoff series. So, you can sit out the first game and no one's going to care. So, but I do think a message should be sent on both sides, in my opinion.
I was going to say that
coming in hot. I love it. Go ahead, Allan.
Yeah, I was going to say Giannis is suspended for the rest of the playoffs.
So, yeah, he has a vacation. He's in New York now. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I just think when the season resumes, I think there should be a game suspension. Because looking at the footage, he's the one. All he has to do, like you were saying, Allan, he's a hothead. He goes up to the locker room, and that doesn't happen. So he's the one that came over there and kind of continued to, instigate what was going on. As much as I am angry with Tyrese Haliburton's father, I don't think he should get off the hook, and I'm pretty harsh on what should happen to him. But, Giannis is not innocent in this at all. So
yeah, and there's no rule that says you can't just go straight to the locker room. You don't have to stay around and congratulate people. Yeah. If you're mad, just go.
Yeah, get out of there.
I think there's another interesting point overall to be had here. Over the past few years, we've seen a lot of NBA father drama. The Stephen A. LeBron confrontation was a fatherly based thing. Ja Morant, his father, his name escapes me, being courtside has stirred up some controversy in the past. This situation here with Tyrese Haliburton's father, and Justin, I agree strongly with what you said about him unfortunately taking his son's moment. It's a bit tragic in a way too. There's kind of a different level of fan that we're talking about here when it's a player's relative, and there are historically privileges given to NBA family members, and that's something that is a great asset to keep your superstars happy. That's always been used by teams. Yes, your family is going to have a lot more access So I think I don't want to deep dive into this today, as we've already done, I think, a decent job of that. But this maybe is something that needs to be looked at and examined in terms of access to the court and those types of things if stuff like this continues to happen.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because you didn't mention like my favorite family members of a major star, the Jokic brothers, right?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean that was a whole crazy situation.
Oh man, I kind of enjoyed that. So never mind. Let's keep this going. No, I'm just just joking. But yeah, no, that's one of the all time. And I was going to mention how Jokic before the major success and winning a title. I mean, he had a lot of times in the playoffs where he bombed out, losing his temper too. A lot like Giannis has in certain moments here that we've seen. But we could talk about this all day. I do want to get to the other series that are going on. And there's another interesting one. The way that it's played out, I think, is more just an issue of effort. We kind of said about this series that it was going to be maybe a little bit more old school feeling and that there would be a lot of extra effort. I think it's kind of played out the way that we've thought, and it seems like the Knicks are still going to come out on top. So, of course, I'm talking about the Knicks versus the Pistons here. Justin, I'll start with you. Just any thoughts on this series? I mean, our predictions have been pretty spot on, and then also with it being a 3-2 Knicks lead at this point, do you feel any sense of more like disappointment in the Knicks that it's gone on this far, or are you more impressed by Detroit if you feel one way or the other about that?
I'll answer your question with another question. Do you think with Jalen Brunson on a different team, he'd be this, I guess, injury prone as we get further into the playoffs? Do you think his health would be better on another team
That's hard to say.
in the playoffs?
I mean, you're right. We've got the Thibodeau narrative that is kind of the strong undercurrent that's playing out again. So point well taken there. You know, I don't remember a lot of injury concerns in his short young time in Dallas. So I guess I would answer with that, and I would say I'm not sure, but I think there's potentially it could be different.
It's just peculiar how much he gets beat up in these playoff series. And he is the core of this team. And I think that's just a massive concern going forward, even him and Josh Hart, too. So I would say, you have the question on here, impressed by Detroit or disappointed in New York. I would say probably impressed by Detroit. I think, to me, they've shown a lot of fighting spirit. I think they've shown when they're down, they don't quit, and that's a very mature quality of a team that's new to the spotlight, especially facing a prime, like Eastern Conference contender, not one to maybe make the finals, but at least is in the top part of the league there. But also facing a very hostile home court advantage with Madison Square Garden. And their resilience, that is impressive, especially considering what they've gone through in previous seasons. So I have to say I'm very impressed with Detroit. And I think if they push it to 7, I'll be further impressed, especially with Kay Cunningham. Just seeing, I think the city deserves it. I mean, they just been through the ringer. I mean, even when they won the title back in the 2000s there, I think people just kind of hated on them. And just their playing style, I don't think they've really gotten any respect since the Bad Boys Pistons. I mean, so I think it's cool to kind of see them have this resurgence, and I hope that remains, and then continuing to be a Eastern Conference power here. But yeah, there is concerns for the Knicks. I worry with Thibodeau, just with this roster, if they're going to be a contender, if his coaching style's going to have to evolve. And I think we did see that kind of bit him the previous game with terms of Hart and Brunson just waiting at the scores table to get into the game. But I think that, there's just something to be said about the health of your roster heading into the deep part of the playoffs. So,
and that was a huge problem for the Knicks in last year's playoffs. I mean, it was just a war of attrition that they lost, and we saw that play out on Thibodeau's Bulls teams. We've Seen that talked about ad nauseum. So you both know and understand that narrative well. Allan, your thoughts on this series as well, and if you're more disappointed or impressed by one team or another.
So the Knicks were my dark horse to win the East.
That's right.
Like I don't think they were, but if I was gonna pick like a dark horse team to come out of nowhere, they were my dark horse. So am I disappointed in the Knicks? I think they're right where I expected them to be, playing tough games. I never thought this Detroit series would be as easy as maybe some people thought it would be, and I think we all agreed on that this was going to be a slog. I'm really impressed by Detroit, though. You've had people bounce back from bad games. You've got just resiliency. Any young team that is down 3-1 and wins that game, that game to make it 3-2 has my respect because you would be no one would fault you if you just mailed it in on that game and went on vacation and said I got to grow some more. But Detroit said no, we're still in this. We're going, and that's a credit to their coach. JB's a hard nosed coach. Um, and that team has taken on his personality. So I'm very impressed with the Pistons. Win or lose tonight, I'm impressed with their season and with what they've done here in the playoffs.
Well said, and it's cool to see him get some shine since Cleveland is doing so well, and he was coach of that squad. So it's cool to see him succeed with the Pistons. I think sometimes with Detroit, it seems like their young emotional state is both their strength and their weakness. But I think a team that everyone had written off before the season started. And to see them, it kind of to me feels like the Pacers of last year, where they kind of came out of nowhere and had that success. Very different teams structurally and those types of things. But yeah, kudos to the Pistons. I mean, what else can you say? I do feel like the Knicks have, with everything that's happened, they've kind of gone down a rung in contention. Guys, we have more to discuss, more series to cover. So I just want to throw to you both any thoughts you have on Cavs versus Heat, Magic versus Celtics. Those series have both gone just about exactly as we predicted they would go. So real quickly, the floor, if you want to make any comments about either of those series, Cavs versus Heat, Celtics versus Magic. Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, just real quick, with the Heat and Cavs, there's a disgraceful loss. I mean, you should never lose, but how many points? 50 in any what, something
Oh,
like that.
I
Any
felt bad, to be
circumstance,
honest.
let alone in the playoffs. I mean, that shows that to me. That shows there's no effort. I mean, I don't think there's any NBA team that's 50 points better than another one. That's based on, especially in a playoff situation. I just don't believe that. So just to see that, I think it's a bad look for the league. And the Heat, they got a lot of rebuilding. Maybe it's time to have Wes Goldberg, who is the host of the Locked On Heat podcast, and he can maybe provide some insight as to what's going to happen with that team. I think with the Cavs, they look really solid. Celtics Magic, I mean, they're battling a lot of just injuries on the Celtics end. I mean, that's kind of going to be the key is, can they stay healthy? So that's an interesting story, but not surprised they took care of business against the Magic.
Allan,
Yeah,
any other thoughts?
yeah, I agree with Justin. I mean, I think Heat culture is dead, and the way that game played out, it
Yep.
seemed like at least this iteration of the team is not listening to Spoelstra, Eric Spoelstra. It seems like he's lost that locker room a little bit. So I think there's needs to be some big changes with their personnel, um, because he's a great coach and he doesn't deserve to have that kind of effort from his players. Um, it probably didn't help that all the stuff that Jimmy Butler got away with. I think probably did not help that locker room. Um, the other one, the Celtics did what they were just the Celtics. I mean, it was fun to kind of key in and watch as they would be down three, and all of a sudden you blink and they're up like 15. Just a very very Celtics kind of series where they just played with their food a little bit, but eventually won.
For sure. Yeah, well said. And it's interesting to compare this 8 seed Heat team to the 8 seed Heat team that went to the finals, just 2 years ago. Definitely very different, very different feel, and a lack of firepower, maybe even to an extent, a lack of development or stardom that we were expecting from Bam Adebayo. But I certainly don't shoulder too much blame on his shoulders. But I think that's important to mention. So, I mean, a team that just desperately needs to reload. And you're right, Allan. Maybe Heat culture has sort of died down, and they need to get players that'll reinstill that and be, I don't know, believers in it. So, quick thoughts to close up with the East. We've got I would assume, unless Detroit does almost the unthinkable, presumptive Celtics versus Knicks matchup. This is something that I think everyone was excited to see, as the playoffs approached. With the injury concerns, maybe that's a little bit more cut and dry for the Celtics. But I want your guys' thoughts just on how the Celtics and Knicks match up, what your early predictions might be, if you can see a scenario where the Knicks can upset the Celtics. And then let's do the same thing for Cavaliers Pacers, just kind of quickly. Do the Pacers have a puncher's chance? I feel like it's a little bit difficult to gauge it with how run down the Bucks were, but I'll leave it there. And Allan, let's start with you, giving us your thoughts on both of those matchups, if you would.
Celtics in 5. Um, if it's somehow Detroit, then it's 6. But I think the Knicks are wounded, and I think they're going to be even more wounded playing against a physical Boston team. And then I'm going to go on a limb here and say Pacers in 7. I still don't trust the Cavs. And I think the Pacers have got some dogs on their team.
Love it. Justin, your thoughts on the series?
Yeah. I'll go Celtics in 6. Some of the injuries of the Celtics concern me, and I believe in the magic of Madison Square Garden. It's weird because, intangibles that, really don't make any sense in regular life, like curses and just, I don't know, momentum, things that, seem ridiculous. You talk about in other phases of life. In sports, I believe they're totally real. And I just believe in MSG. There's just some kind of magic to it in the playoffs, and I just think that Brunson has a few miracle performances in him, but it won't be enough to take out the Celtics. So I think they got some magic, but not enough to take out the Celtics. So I got them in 6. Pacers and Cavaliers. This is a tough series. Yeah, Allan, I feel you on the Cavaliers. I got kind of OKC. The way you feel about the Cavs, I feel about the Thunder a little bit. Even though I just think the roster I think is way better than the Cavs, and it's just that kind of overrides kind of my hesitation to kind of pick against them. And I think the Pacers have been pretty proven in terms of how resilient they are. Man, this is tough. Yeah, I'll go Pacers in 7 too. Yeah, I just think it's kind of, I don't know. There's no kind of any reasoning based on my pick on that. I just think with the Cavaliers, I think they've proven to have some fatal flaws that might show up in this series. So I'll go Indiana in 7.
Wow. I think you guys are crazy. I think the Cavs are winning in 6, but I love that you pick the Pacers. So that's awesome. And if it plays out that way, that's going to be very exciting. So not hating on your pick, but man, I'm going Cavs here. I just don't trust, I guess, that the Bucks were this year like an opponent that makes me more jazzed up than the Pacers. I think the Pacers did kind of what they should have done in that series, but man, you never know. I mean, a momentous thing like Haliburton making that shot, the build and confidence that gives, you never know. But I'm going Cavs in 6 here. For the other series, I'll agree with you, Allan. I think Celtics in 5. I think with the Celtics already getting through the team that will maybe like physically push them the most with the Magic, I think they may feel a little bit like it's an easier workload going against the Knicks here. Not that the Knicks aren't going to play as tough as they can, but they're just not as physical of a team as the Magic anymore, especially with the roster updates compared to last season. No slight on anyone, but it was moves that were made to increase their firepower on offense to try to keep up with the Celtics, and I just don't think they're going to be able to do that. Justin, you're right in that depending on how injuries go for the Celtics side of things too, that could lead to some changes here, but I feel pretty confident about the Celtics. And then, man, it'll be interesting if we do get a Pacers Celtics or a Cavs Celtics Eastern Conference Finals. It'll be cool to see how that all plays out, and if they can actually push last year's champions, the Celtics. Great discussion on the East Conference. Let's move to the West. Thunder just blazed through the Grizzlies. I don't think we need to touch on too much on that. I guess the one question I'll ask from that are you guys worried about the Grizzlies, worried about Ja Morant? Justin, I'll throw it to you first.
Worried in what way about Ja Morant?
Just for the future build of that team. I don't think anyone was anticipating them to beat the Thunder, but do you think they can move forward as constructed and just kind of run this back and have more consistency next year? Obviously the late season dismissal of their head coach was a big deal. So I guess just how are you feeling about that franchise right now?
They've been through a lot of turmoil. The suspension, then Ja Morant got hurt, and then the coach got fired. I want to see this team in a season where they have everything at their disposal without something like terrible happening before totally writing them off. Like, for instance, like the Clippers. There's been plenty of instances where they have everything going for them and things just go in a disastrous faction. So that's why we never pick them except for myself this year. So for Memphis, I don't think there's any worry about panicking yet, just due to how this franchise has been, especially for Ja Morant the last few years. Some self-inflicted wounds that he has done to himself, but nevertheless, we'll have to, because we see in Memphis at full power really prove to be a threat in the playoffs. But I just think we'll have to see what happens next season with everything at their disposal, without anything bad happening at first.
They made some echoes. They haven't had like a Western Conference Finals run yet, but
No.
but maybe that's still, there's a chance that's coming. Allan, same question to you. I mean, do you have concerns about the Grizzlies? Do you think they just need more time?
I have concerns about the Grizzlies. I think their front office wants to run a more spread kind of 5 out attack, offensive attack. And they brought in their current head coach was brought in as assistant to bring that about. Taylor Jenkins wanted to lean into the gritty kind of defensive team they've been. So I think that's another reason why he's gone. Um, I think it's a team at a crossroads, and I think you've got to look at which personnel, you know, actually fit your long-term plans. And um, I mean, Ja getting suspended for silly things, uh, you know, uh, uh, people disappearing in the playoffs, and then just, I mean, let's be honest here. Their performance against OKC was pathetic. I don't know no another way to put it. It's if I were coaching like a youth team, I would have set everybody down and put in a whole bunch of new players because it was just pathetic. They didn't even put up a fight. Um, so I think I'm worried about the Grizzlies. As a Grizzlies fan, I'd be worried too.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to wonder with everything that's gone on. I mean, can Ja Morant be, being that he is the number one talent on that team, is that a healthy thing? Like, can he also be that 1A to take teams to the promised land, so to speak? So far, that certainly has not been the case. So I think that's an interesting problem to have as well, because culture changes are are difficult things to do. Um, and grit and grind was a big thing in Memphis for a long time. So if you're going to go away from that, I have some reservations about that too, because that might just not align with the culture that you were intended to have for that franchise. But yeah, great points, Alan.
Yeah, I just want to add, I mean, who are they blaming for this one? Who are they blaming for this going out sad this playoffs? Because they did Dylan Brooks wrong. They blamed him.
Yeah,
They said they didn't even sign him.
Good point.
And so who are they blaming now? Like,
That's true.
so yeah.
Yeah, and I will add, look at the points per game in this series. I mean, for John Morant, I mean, aren't people in the past at least consider him the face of the league in that kind of conversation, at least in the new generation? I mean, his points for, especially in the playoffs, you expect, a MVP like type player, as people have labeled him in the past, to, average over 20 points per game. He averaged 18.3 points along with Scottie Pippen Jr. I mean, that's unacceptable for a player that we want to elevate to a MVP type of level, and he's at that level. I think that's underperforming, and I think we've given him a chance to recover from his injuries and everything that's going on. And he's been doing all these taunts, like you do all these taunts, these whatever things he wants to do, throwing grenades and stuff. Well, you better be averaging 30, and you're not, and you're
Well, yeah,
bouncing the first round. So
yeah.
again,
At this point, Justin
yeah.
he's just a more athletic Rod Strickland.
Yeah, it's headed down that road. Yeah.
yeah. Be interesting to see what happens. A lot of work to be done in Memphis, no doubt. I want to go just kind of down the list. We'll go to the 2-7. Alan, we might as well rip the Band-Aid off and talk about the Rockets. I picked the Rockets, even though the Warriors were favored, and it does seem like Golden State is highly likely to close this out. They're leading right now 3-2 as we speak. Turns out offense matters was kind of one of my main notes about this series, and it's something I don't think is totally unexpected from this Houston squad and what we know about them. They're what I would describe as one of those classic like try hard teams where they're going to get a lot of wins because of the effort they put in and the youth they have during the regular season. But that's not necessarily going to translate to playoff matchup success. I thought with the Warriors kind of being on some down notes going into this, that the Rockets could establish themselves as the rightful 2 seed, but the Warriors have outclassed them to this point. So, Alan, I want to start with you and just get your thoughts on this Houston squad. And I don't know, is this a mark of embarrassment to lose to a 7 seed?
No, I will say, I mean, let's be clear, 2 through 7 are so close this year that I don't think I think 2 through 7 are all pretty evenly matched, and that's why we've seen some pretty competitive games. Notwithstanding something we'll talk about later. And I think so. No embarrassment. Honestly, I think this series has been so much closer than 3-2. And I will point out that there's been 2 blowouts in this series, and they've both been Rockets wins. The
Hmm.
other losses have come down into the final minutes of the game, which to me speaks to what we talked about when we were previewing this, youth versus experience. And so in that case, the experience is winning out in those close games right now, but that's okay. They're getting the experience now to learn how to win these games, and that's even in the losses. You watch the post game stuff. They're not down on themselves. They're like, I'm learning something here, and I'm going to take it to the next game. Um, I picked Warriors in 7 or Rockets in 5. Obviously, it's not going to be Rockets in 5, uh, but I still think this one might go 7. It has a good chance to go 7. I thought last night's game I thought it was a little pathetic for Steve Kerr not to bring his guys back in when the lead got down to 13 with like 8 minutes left. I actually was just shocked that he did not do that. So I think punting on a game 5. I know they did that against Memphis in 2022, but this isn't that. These Rockets are not that Memphis team, so I think he's playing a little bit with fire there, a little cocky on Steve Kerr's part.
Well said. Justin, your thoughts on this series overall?
Yeah, I echo Allen's sentiments. I like the intensity, and if the Rockets do lose, I think this will be a great learning experience. Again, that they're new to this. My question for both of you, especially we've seen Sacramento just take such a fall from grace, and they're the hot team in the league. They're okay. Here comes Light the Beam, and they're rising. And they had, I know, a series with the Warriors too. And I'm just wondering, are there any if they lose this series, uh, is there any fear of basically? I guess my question is, do you think the Rockets are in this position to stay, or do you think because 2 through 7, like Allan was saying, so close that this year might be an aberration and they might end up as like the 6th or 7th seed next year, just due to how close the conference is? And if that does happen, do you think that's kind of going to be a letdown for the fan base, or should fans just be really paying attention to not the seed but just the quality of play of the Rockets?
Allan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that because it's something I've been thinking a lot about. Look, this season was a great season, and in some cases they played above expectations. So will there be maybe some fallback next year? Possibly, but like Sacramento Kings, this Rockets team is young.
Mm,
Those core young guys are 22 and under.
yeah,
So, well, I guess Jalen Green's 20, just turned 23, but you know what I mean. They have got so much growth. I think my biggest concern is the front office going to panic and make some dumb trade uh, in order to fast track the growth. But based on Tim McMahon's article, despite the misleading headline that got plastered all over ESPN.com yesterday about the Rockets are going to be looking for a superstar, if you actually read the article, Patrick Fertitta and Raphael Stone actually are committed to keeping the core together and seeing where it goes. They'll do their due diligence if somebody comes available, but they're not going to make a trade just to make a trade. Um, I think they, I think they've seen things. Even I know Jalen Green struggled for all but a couple of games in this series, but I think they've seen things. It's just the first time Jalen's probably had to face consistent hedging and double teams in the playoffs, and so learning to read that and how to react to it. I thought he bounced back pretty well with that yesterday. So I think as long as they don't make a stupid trade, where they trade everything to get Giannis for like 3 years before he starts to deteriorate, then I think they'll be fine. Will they be the number 2 seed next year? Who knows? There's injuries. There's everything comes into to play, but
The
I think
Western
they are
Conference.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Western Conference, but I do think they're a perennial playoff contender now.
Yeah, and I think, Alan, that's all well said. It- a big difference between Sacramento, where they were, and I wish they were still um, a little bit higher in the rankings because that was a lot of fun. But a big difference between them and this Houston team is that Houston is much more in the driver's seat. Alan, you brought up their youth, and also the assets and the pivots that they can make are so much more extensive than what Sacramento had available to them. I think you're absolutely right. They just need to take their time here, which is comforting to hear that that is the plan. I think a lot of people are saying this is the number one most likely destination if Giannis were to be released from Milwaukee. What I'm looking at more so is with the value decrease on Kevin Durant. I think there are ways that the Rockets could make a trade where they're not losing as much as you would think to add Kevin Durant to this roster. I think that may be the move in terms of what we just talked about with someone who knows what to do late in the game. I mean, there are a few players you would rather have than KD, even at this stage in his career in those situations. And this team is young enough they could get him to that positions to do those things pretty easily. not necessarily the first thing that I would want to happen for the Rockets team, but I think there are moves they can make, and even getting Giannis at more of a bargain than people might think. If they really hardball it with the Bucks, everyone knows that the Bucks are in a hard spot right now. So there's a lot of ways that this can go. It does seem to me like aligning Giannis with Coach Udoka, that sounds like a match made in heaven to me. But I wouldn't want to sell away the whole team for it, and the Rockets don't want to either. So future's bright here. I think, long story short, it's disappointing to see a 2 seed go down to the 7 seed when that's your team. But credit to the Warriors. I got to say that too. In being able to get here and get past this talented but very young team. It's credit to them, despite maybe, I agree, a little bit of arrogance on Coach Kerr's side. I think you have to tip the cap to them because I personally was not expecting the Warriors to still have this much in the tank.
Yeah, I concur. Yeah, I've been pretty surprised too, especially with this Houston and their suffocating defense. I've been surprised that the Warriors have been able to hang in there. So I'm curious if they do finish the Rockets off, like what's going to happen. Just because I just think they're kind of a fool's gold team. It's great for the NBA. We'll get to later on just with the ratings and everything. But I, as much as I like the Warriors and all, I think they're kind of running out of steam at this point.
Absolutely, and I don't anticipate the Warriors having potential to advance more with on the other side, the Rockets. I mean, you don't know with a young team like that, their ceiling could potentially rise. I might not necessarily pick that in a potential matchup against the Timberwolves, and we'll talk about that. But that's I don't know. Kind of feels like this is the end of the line for the Warriors if they advance here, to me. But we'll see what happens. Speaking of which, the Timberwolves, all season long, it's been, man, this team is really disappointing. Man, they got rid of Karl Anthony Towns. What were they thinking? And maybe that's still warranted, but hey, might be kind of worth all that noise to eliminate the 3 seed Lakers in the first round in gentlemanly sweep fashion, which is what has happened, you guys. And man, I sat on this. I was wavering. I said, you guys remember, I was like, I really want to pick the Timberwolves here. Man, I wish I would have. I should have just, I don't know, just stuck with that feeling there. But I didn't. I picked the Lakers. I have to own that. It just seems like the interior was too much of a weakness for the Lakers to overcome. We were wondering about that. Guys, the Lakers were a 3 seed. They have big names, obviously. They've got the LeBron name and the Luka name on that roster. I have been naysaying the Lakers all season, so I'm not surprised to see them, even though I picked them, not surprised to see them flounder in the first round here. Justin, your thoughts on this series, on the impact of a Luka LeBron loss in the first round?
Yeah, this is very interesting. To my shock, I saw a montage of a lot of people that picked the Lakers, so I'm glad to be in good company, despite being incorrect. I mean, look, this is a roster that got a huge addition, that lost a huge addition in Anthony Davis as well, a trade that didn't go through. I'm going to give the Lakers a little bit of slack in this series. What I'm honestly looking at is from a coaching standpoint is JJ Redick. And I've been kind of impressed with his coaching in the regular season, just due to his lack of inexperience and his knowledge of the game, it seems like. And, from him being an analyst. And I think with Steve Kerr, he's a hothead too. Steve Kerr's a hothead. You see him slam clipboards and everything. But also, I get the sense that Kerr is grounded in reality and he is willing to take some accountability, at least, compared to JJ Redick. And I think if he does not follow the same kind of playbook as Steve Kerr, it could be a disaster. You posted it in our group chat, Allan, I believe, of just the press conference that JJ Redick had. I understand that that report was kneeling him, but you're the coach. You're supposed to minimize distraction. I mean, you just give a snide remark, you stay there, you do the rest of the press conference, no one's talking about it. And instead, he just storms off. I just think I like JJ Redick, but to me, there's a sense of entitlement. I don't think he really respects the media. I don't think he respected the media when he was a member of the media of doing First Take. You can just tell by how many times he got triggered by Stephen A. and I believe Chris Russo on that show every day. So I'm wondering in the future when the stakes are going to be higher. I have to imagine you have LeBron and Luka, and they're probably going to make some kind of trade for what your guys were saying in the interior that they're going to improve, and they're probably going to make it out of the first round within the next couple of years if JJ Redick is the coach. And the pressure is only going to get worse, and he's going to make mistakes. He is new at being a coach, and that's okay. You're going to make mistakes. He is new. That's just the way it goes. But I think the way he handles it, if this continues, this is I think, a troubling sign in my opinion, just in terms of being a leader of this team. I don't know. I just think he needs to have like more self-control. I like his honesty. That's refreshing. But I think there's a way to do it. I think like with Pop and I think with Steve Kerr, following that direction. I don't want him to be a robot. I don't want him to not show emotion. But I think there is a bar there in a line that I think he's walking dangerously close. And it's his first year, so I'm cutting him some slack. But just as concerned I have just to look at in the horizon.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I think I'm going to pretend to be the greatest coach in the NBA right now, still after 20, 30 years, however long he's been doing it, right? If you ask Pop that question, here's what he would have said. He would have been, you know what? I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, exactly.
So just let me know where you're sitting during the game. I'm going to come over and I'm going to ask you when to get the substitutions in, okay?
Exactly.
He would have turned it around on him and made the guy look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something that I don't know. Maybe this will be uncomfortable. Maybe this will be a controversial statement. I don't know if you guys notice or feel this same way, but now that the Lakers have Luka Doncic, LeBron is not on the same timeline as this team. And there are things that I see from LeBron. And again, yes, he's 40. Yes, he's great. Yes, there are things he's doing that it's pretty incredible. You look at some of the analytics and when he's effective, how it affects the Lakers, and it's not as great in terms of, I believe in their last 12 games before their final loss, they had like a total of 3 losses. Anytime LeBron was the leading scorer, the rest of the team suffers for it. His plus minus numbers haven't been great during the regular season. Some of the things I see from a body language perspective too. You think of like LeBron in Miami when he was hungry, when he was getting those first titles, the body language during the playoffs compared to, look, I'm going to say it, laughing with Anthony Edwards at times during this series. Look, LeBron has built his legacy. It's a great legacy, up among the greats, even if you don't have him as the GOAT. I just wonder how Luka is looking at, LeBron like laughing at with Anthony Edwards when Luka was getting to his first conference finals and then NBA finals. I'm sorry, he was in the conference finals before, getting to his first NBA finals last season, and going through Anthony Edwards to do that. I don't know, you guys. I said last season that I don't think you can have LeBron James as a max contract and be a title contender. I still feel that way. I don't feel like it has gotten relieved. There's a lot of talent, and yes, they can get some help on the interior. I think they can find strategic ways to do that. But man, I'm worried for the Lakers, and a lot of it is because LeBron is still on this roster, and I'm not trying to fully slam the guy. but man, I have reservations about the Lakers' future here. They're built for success. If we're talking like 5+ years down with having Luka on this roster, no doubt. But it feels kind of weird to me, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I, if this was a vacuum and I were Rob Pelinka and not Rob Pelinka because he's not very good at team building or a good GM. He's, despite lucking into the Luka trade, I would look to see where LeBron wanted to go, to finish his career and see what I could get for him. And then I would throw that $30 million at Miles Turner, who instantly fixes a lot of the issues that the Lakers have with size, rebounding, defense, and he's still only 29. Um, uh, and he is, I believe, an unrestricted free agent. Um, so
100% agree.
I,
100% agree.
I mean,
But it's
he,
LeBron, so
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's like it's loaded because he's so powerful and a legend in the game.
yeah. Have him go to the Warriors.
Yeah, 100%. If I could do that, if I were running the Lakers, I would see how do we move on from this, because there's also been joking, kind of LeBron being like Brady-esque and wanting to play until he's 45,
Yeah,
things like that. And I don't assume he wants to take a pay cut, and that's his prerogative. But if I'm the Lakers, and it's like, honestly, I'm sorry, but Luka's your number one player now, since he stepped on the scene. I don't know. Do you want that? I think that's uncomfortable, and I haven't heard many people talk about it, so I wanted to bring it up.
Can Luka carry the load though? In your guys' scenario, if LeBron is gone, are you adding another piece around him? I mean, keep in mind who's that other piece that you add if LeBron is gone? Like, who is available? Who would be the best scenario?
I think next year is kind of a wash.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, I think you probably look to see you look if Kai is recovered from his knee surgery. You look at Kai maybe, and then like I said, you sign Miles Turner, um, and you look for um, a heady, scrappy point guard.
Is that going to be enough? I just think with Luca, you saw when he was in the finals. I mean, you might say he was overreacting, but I never seen Brian Windhorst destroy a player after a playoff NBA Finals game based on somebody's defense. So I'm just wondering if Luca just is he enough just based on his body, the way he takes care of his body. Like, I just think with LeBron, and to me, I disagree with kind of the attitude. LeBron's never had that like killer instinct. Let me be very careful how I say this. He's always been friendly to the opponent that I have seen. I don't think, unless he's openly being antagonized. I don't think and I don't really hold this against him in terms of the whole Jordan LeBron situation, but I don't really necessarily hold that against him. I think he's valuable unless you could find a replacement for him. I don't know why you would get rid of him. And I understand with Miles Turner, but I just think that leaves a massive deficiency in terms of who's going to carry the load besides Luca on that team. I
I
mean,
mean, in
if you're open,
fairness,
yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go
You're
ahead.
the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, who's to say you couldn't have Giannis next year?
Fair. Good point.
Like
It's
with
true.
LeBron's
Good point.
salary off the books, and Giannis at this point, would be a massive upgrade over 40-year-old LeBron. Again,
Fair.
no disrespect,
Fair.
but kind of what I'm saying is I think there are options that would be better running mates with Luca right now on Luca's timeline.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's weird to say about LeBron James
As
and
long as you
that
can pull it
name,
off. Yeah.
but I don't know. You'd have to super covertly be exploring this. I think
Right.
the Lakers should be.
No, I think there's a lot of good points to what you're saying, but I think it's so tough, especially how those Laker diehards they get attached to players, and it's not like LeBron. His in terms of his numbers, it's not like he's massively deteriorating, where he's averaging like 15 points, and his stats are terrible. I just think from a PR standpoint, unless you like in your scenario, Matt, really make some savvy moves, and what you said, Allan, Rob Pelinka. I mean, the odds of that happening again. That's going to be extremely tough. So I just question if I don't know how great of a GM he is, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant is out
That's
there
true.
available.
Good point.
I think, he does some similar things to Luka, obviously, so you could argue fit there too. There's similar questions with LeBron and fit next to Luka still that remain. But anyway, we got to move on. We got another couple topics to cover. Before we close this, I want to give some shine to the Timberwolves too.
Yeah.
People were going, Justin, you and I talked about it. People were going ridiculously over the top about Anthony Edwards. I do like seeing him get this win under his belt, like for his legacy. This is kind of, again, another sort of stepping stone type thing. I mean, last year it was the way they wiped the Suns out of the playoffs when everyone had more expectations about them. This is a nice win when you have that name of Luka and that name of LeBron as your opponent and you push them out of the playoffs. So just how are we feeling about Anthony Edwards? No, I'm not going to say he's Kobe or do anything that like what was going on last season, but this is nice for him, right?
It is. I know we got to move on. I'll make it quick. I like the competitiveness. I like the fire. I like the trash talk. I hope it continues.
Absolutely. Allan, your thoughts?
I just want to say Chris Finch is a heck of a coach. He
Yeah.
thoroughly outcoached JJ Redick. He made the right adjustments. We need to really start paying attention to what Chris Finch does. I know they were uneven during the year, but I mean, for a guy to get the most out of Rudy Gobert, you got to give him his flowers.
Well said. Yeah, great point. All right, guys, we got one more series. This one has been up and down. My takeaway from this is, everyone's kind of shocked, I think, that the Clippers haven't followed through. We all thought this series was going to be close. So that's definitely held true. So far to this point, now granted, they're playing tonight. Denver's leading 3-2 right now. So far, it kind of feels like there's been a disappearing act with Harden in parts of this series. That's something that we've seen historically in the past with James Harden, unfortunately. And then, unfortunately for the Clippers, getting knocked out of the playoffs when they've made the playoffs is something not uncommon in their history, too. Hey, at least they're in the playoffs. That's better than a lot of their history. Unfortunately, again, apologies to Clippers fans. But you guys, what are your thoughts? Just are you impressed with what Denver's done? Or do you feel more, I guess, disappointed in the Clippers for not carrying through as arguably the hottest team heading into the playoffs?
I feel like an idiot picking the Clippers. God, it broke that
you
rule.
went against our show's rules.
I
Justin.
know we did.
What
I
were you
know.
thinking?
I have no idea what
I'm
I was
just
thinking.
joking. You know what? I think most people were
Brutal.
in that boat.
Brutal.
And with the way things were in Denver, I wouldn't have been shocked to see the Clippers win this, other than that they are the Clippers. Again, apologies to Clippers fans. No, no ill will intended, but. Man, it's what we've seen. I'm sorry. Continue, Justin.
No, it's unfortunate. I think it's impressive by Jokic again. I mean, I feel like we're one of the only podcasts out there that really appreciates this guy's game and see him as the game-changing generational superstar for what he is. And props to Aaron Gordon, props to Jamal Murray for really stepping up in this series and showing that they are leaders as well, despite all the circumstances. So. Yeah, I don't know if you're the Clippers. I mean, at this point, it's just with Harden and Kawhi and Kawhi Leonard's legacies, it's just such a shame, really. That's based on their talent, especially Kawhi. It's just truly unfortunate. It's just the Clippers are the most frustrating franchise, I think, of the new millennium. I think they're at least our top 5. I mean, just in terms of their potential, and then just with the players, it's just like you would think. With certain rosters, they at least have an NBA Finals appearance, I would say. But it's just one disaster after another. And I'm just bummed out that I went against our rule. So, I don't know.
All good. All is forgiven. Allan, your thoughts on this series?
This series has been so crazy with the different finishes. The it's been almost like Keystone Cops like. Only thing I want to point out is I think David Adelman has made a strong case to be considered
Yeah.
uh, as their coach for next year. So hopefully he gets the interview. He came into an impossible situation, and it seems like the team is actually responding to him, and I think he's done as good a job as anyone could in that situation.
Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah.
How if this game winner that Aaron Gordon dunked in, if this happens like in the conference finals and beyond, don't you guys think it gets a lot more shine even than it got in the moment?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all
Just
timer.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I still have questions about if it was legitimate, even though I've seen the replay. Incredible. Incredible. So credit to the Nuggets. I personally, you guys know I'm biased in favor of the Nuggets. I love Jokic, so I do hope they close this series out. All this to say, with what we've discussed in the first round on the Western Conference Finals or Western Conference side, I don't have any doubt, based on what I've seen, that the Thunder are cruising into the finals at this point. Like, nobody else has impressed me to the point that I think they're going to be able to challenge that team. Like, that team's 1 through 10. They, someone said the other day, they basically have like two almost starting five worthy rotations, and it's hard to argue against that. So I am ready to punch the Thunder into the finals, like really, unless Jokic can just go ridiculous at this point in this next series, presuming the Nuggets close it out. Do you guys feel as confident about the Thunder, Justin? I'm guessing probably you don't.
I just worry, especially, and again, if the Clippers win this series, I think the Thunder destroy them. I agree with you, Matt. Then you get to the conference finals, and you've taken a look at Warriors, Timberwolves. I would say I think they get past them pretty easily. I think the only worry for the Thunder is the Nuggets if they're reinvigorated. I just think facing Jokic, facing a Nuggets team that's prone to give them some type of problem sometimes, I think that can be an issue. But I think that's good. Honestly, if I'm the Thunder, I'm rooting for the Nuggets. I know that seems weird, but I just think they need a team to push them and to make them uncomfortable so they're prepared for what they might face in the finals if the Celtics make it there, because that's going to be a difficult matchup for them. I think that if they face anybody else, I think they'd be the favorite. But I think against a Celtics, which I think we assumed that they will most likely make it for out of the East, I think the Thunder need to be tested. And I think the Nuggets are the team to do that to them.
Allan, your thoughts on Thunder dominance, or am I too sure in the Thunder?
If I think if the Warriors and the Nuggets win their series, I don't think the Thunder have anybody that could challenge them. Looking at regular season, Houston had a chance to kind of upset them, like a puncher shot, only because Young, plus Şengün gives Holmgren a complete head. He out. So the Thunder, for whatever reason, Şengün just dominates Holmgren. My only worry, if I were the Thunder, is that somehow Houston made it there. Otherwise, I thought Jokic has like an all-time series. I think the Thunder's perimeter is so strong. Aaron Gordon and Michael Carter, Michael
Michael
Porter
Porter Jr.
Jr.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Jamal Murray.
Another thing I love about this matchup is you get the top two perennial MVP duel between SGA and Jokic. That's nice. The other thing too, if the Nuggets want to bet that the Thunder are going to reload with Giannis, because the sneaky thing, the only to pull Giannis over is the Thunder. So we could have a situation kind of like Thunder could go to the finals, the Thunder could win the finals, and then add Giannis to this roster and make salaries work. But they could come back even stronger next year in a sense, which is crazy to think about. So well done, Sam Presti, on the chess you've been playing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
totally
they wouldn't
agree.
even have to give up all their picks. I
Yeah,
mean
it's insane.
they could they could still keep picks to reload, which they've kind of been doing anyway, right? They they didn't hit on Poku. Giddy was not a really big hit for them, but they were able to reload because they have so many picks that they're just able to replace those guys, even after they trade them or release them.
Absolutely. Guys, we got time for one more topic here, and then I'm gonna have to sign out respectfully. But I did want to talk about the first round because Justin, you and I last season had some woes about the playoffs in general, and there were a lot of blowouts. It does feel like there's been a lot more competition in this first round as far as first rounds go. Even some of the 5-game series were chippy and interesting in many ways. So that's been, I think, a good thing for the league. And Justin, I know you had some news about the first round and how the good folks of America and beyond have responded to it.
Yeah, they have responded. On Tuesday, ESPN announced that through the first 11 games of the NBA playoffs, through round one, the network seeing their highest average on record, averaging around 4.4 million viewers. That includes the Lakers Timberwolves dramatic game 4 on Sunday afternoon that drew 7.3 million viewers and peaked at 10 million. That's pretty huge for them. And then the second weekend of the NBA playoffs, Saturday, April 26th and Sunday, April 27th, average around 5.5 million viewers on ESPN platforms. That's up 4% from last season. So just good. I know the rating's been slightly up for TNT, I believe. So I think that's a good sign. And also, I mean, you have a lot of big markets here. I mean, you have LA. I mean, you think when the playoffs first started, both LA teams, Golden State has a huge fan base, the Celtics, the Knicks. So I mean, if you get the Knicks versus the Celtics, huge matchup. And then if you get the Warriors versus the Timberwolves, that's Anthony Davis versus Seth Curry. And then you have the Thunder versus the Nuggets, which that's, they have just a little bit of bad blood and chippiness. So from a, I guess, league standpoint, I think you're fairly happy the way it's been played out. I think they get worried if like the Rockets make a huge run. And, I think that's where things get interesting. And I think you take a look at even the Cavaliers Pacers. Like, how do those teams go? But I think for sure, I think this just shows that when there's competitiveness in the playoffs, I think a little bit overreaction to the regular season in terms of if the NBA is falling. And I know there's this big crisis in the beginning of the season, but I think it just proves when you have big market teams with huge stars, the ratings are there for this league. So it's good to see.
Allan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just say, like, the league shouldn't be concerned if the Rockets make a big run because if they do, it's going to be based on Amin Thompson. And if he throws a 30 point, 40-point game in there somehow, you're looking at the next superstar of the league, and
Wow.
they will grasp onto that because they're looking for likable stars and players who are unique, and he fits all those things. I love that the ratings are up. It's been an enjoyable playoff so far. Some of these series remind me of that Bulls Celtics series in the mid 2000s where Derrick Rose's coming out party, where every game was super exciting. It's been just really cool to see.
To your point, Allan, Amen Thompson also has a twin brother, as everyone knows, and who doesn't love that? I mean, you could have twin stars,
That's right.
and he's doing some awesome things on the Pistons too. So that would be kind of cool to see. All right, guys, it has been another classic episode of In the Lab with Hoopsology. I want listeners and viewers your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think is going to advance in the second round as that approaches? Can the Lakers win a title with LeBron on the roster, given you do have Luka on the roster as well? Your thoughts on I don't know, maybe my hot take on that and beyond. Let us know if you guys are enjoying the first round as much as we are, and if you think the Thunder are the outright blow away contenders to come out of the West as we outlined here. Thank you for staying tuned and listening through if you made it this far. For Justin Goodrum, for Allan Munzler, I am Matt Thomas. We will see you next time on In the Lab with Hoopsology. Until then, take care and peace out.
See ya.
Later.